She tore the black woman's dress in front of everyone, then discovered she owned the place. The sound of crystal glasses clinking filled the room. Low jazz whispered through the air, weaving between laughter and murmurs of old money and polished privilege. The chandeliers above scattered golden light across tables draped in ivory linen. Perfume, expensive, sharp, unapologetic, mingled with the buttery scent of seared scallops and aged wine. It was the kind of night where image meant everything. And somewhere between the clatter of silverware and the flash of diamonds, it happened. "Excuse me?" The woman's voice sliced through the chatter like broken glass. Heads turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. At the center of the storm stood Vanessa Sterling, mid-40s, tall, elegant in an emerald gown that shimmered like envy itself. Her manicured hand gripped the shoulder of a young black woman in a simple navy dress. The young woman, Ava, stood frozen. A tray of champagne glasses trembling slightly in her hands, Vanessa's lips curled into a smirk. "This," she gestured toward Ava's navy dress, "is not the service uniform. Who hired you? And why are you wearing something so inappropriate?" A ripple of whispers traveled through the crowd. Ava blinked, heartbeat pounding in her ears. Thud, thud, thud. Her palms slickened around the tray's edges. Her voice, calm but soft, cut through the air. "Ma'am, I'm not," Vanessa interrupted, laughter dripping with cruelty. "Oh, please, don't even start. What are you, a guest here?" She laughed louder this time, making sure everyone heard. "In a place like this?" Ava's throat tightened. Her chest burned with humiliation, but her face remained composed. Behind her calm eyes was a storm of disbelief, rage pressed down by restraint. She could feel the room watching her, the silence louder than the jazz now dying in the background. Every whisper pierced her like needles. Footsteps approached. A waiter hesitated nearby, unsure whether to intervene. Vanessa's husband, a gray-haired man with a tired expression, shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Ava placed the tray down carefully, the glasses clinking softly, a delicate sound in the tension-heavy air. "Ma'am," she said, voice steady now, "I believe there's been a mistake." But Vanessa's sneer only deepened. "Oh, I know exactly what this is. You girls think you can just slip in, blend with the guests, maybe charm your way into a photo or two?" She laughed again, a sound brittle and venomous. "I've seen it before. You people have no shame." A sharp inhale cut through the crowd. Even her husband's face hardened in embarrassment. Ava's heartbeat thundered. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the effort of control. She wanted to shout, to say who she was, to burn this humiliation to ashes. But she didn't, not yet. Instead, she looked Vanessa straight in the eyes, calm, dignified, unflinching. "Please don't touch me," Ava said softly. Vanessa scoffed. "Don't tell me what to do." And in one motion, she reached forward, grabbing the sleeve of Ava's navy dress. The fabric tore, a loud, sickening rip. Time froze. Gasps echoed across the room. A champagne flute slipped from someone's hand and shattered. Ava's breath caught in her throat, shock radiating through her body. The cool air stung her exposed shoulder. Vanessa stepped back, panting slightly, realizing too late what she'd done. But instead of apologizing, she doubled down. "Well," she said, voice shaking, "that's what happens when you pretend to be what you're not." Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence, and then footsteps, slow, purposeful. A man's voice, deep and calm, broke through the stillness. "Vanessa, what did you just do?" Every head turned. Standing near the bar, a man in a tailored black suit approached. Elias. His presence commanded the room before his words ever did. His eyes, sharp, unyielding, locked on Vanessa. "Darling," she stammered, laughing nervously. "You wouldn't believe. She was pretending to be—" Elias raised a hand. His tone dropped an octave. "Pretending?" He looked at Ava, then back at his wife. "Vanessa, do you even know who she is?" Vanessa blinked. "She's a waitress, obviously." A beat of silence. Then another. The air tightened. You could hear the faint hum of the chandelier's electric current. Elias's next words were slow, deliberate. "No, Vanessa." "She's my wife!" A collective gasp rippled through the guests. Vanessa's face drained of color. What are you talking about?" Her voice cracked, disbelief clinging to the edges. Ava stood still. Shoulders back, Eyes unbroken, her heartbeat pounded, but now it was steady, strong. Thud, thud, thud. She watched as realization dawned on Vanessa's face, the horror of understanding she'd just humiliated the very woman who owned half the restaurant they stood in. Elias turned toward Ava, his voice softening. "Are you all right?" Ava nodded, her gaze never leaving Vanessa's. "I'm fine," she whispered. "Just tired of being mistaken for less." The whispers came alive again, hushed, electric, judgmental. "She tore her dress? She's his wife. Oh my God, Vanessa Sterling is finished." Vanessa stumbled backward, trembling, her arrogance evaporating into disbelief. Elias's tone was ice. "You humiliated my wife in public, tore her dress, insulted her for her skin." His words struck like quiet thunder. "You should leave." Vanessa's lips parted, but no words came. She turned, slow, mechanical, and walked out under 100 watching eyes. The door shut behind her with a dull, echoing thud. Silence lingered, fragile as glass. Then, slowly, Ava exhaled. The air left her lungs like release after years of restraint. Her mind raced, rage, relief, shame, all tangled. But beneath it all was something sharper. Resolve. She could feel her heartbeat again. The sound of jazz resumed faintly in the background, but now every note carried weight. Every stare around her had shifted. Ava straightened, adjusting the torn sleeve with quiet dignity. Her voice, calm but firm, carried across the room. "People see what they want to see," she said. "But truth doesn't need permission to exist." The words hung in the air, raw, defiant, undeniable. Elias reached for her hand, pride and apology in his eyes. But before the moment could settle, before anyone could breathe, a voice from the crowd broke the silence. "Wait. Is someone recording this?" Cameras, phones, everywhere, flashing, filming, viral in seconds. Ava turned slightly, meeting the lens of a camera phone with calm eyes. And in that single glance, grace after humiliation, the story that would shake the internet was born. "They tore my dress, but they'll never tear my dignity." The night after the incident, the city outside their penthouse pulsed softly. Headlights blinking through mist, rain whispering against the glass. Ava stood by the window, wearing one of Elias's shirts, its sleeves falling past her wrists. The silk brushed her skin, warm against the cool air. Behind her, the faint hum of jazz from the restaurant replayed in her head, like an echo she couldn't silence. The tear in the dress had been repaired, but the sting, that moment, kept replaying over and over. She tore my dress. The memory pressed down on her chest like weight. Elias's reflection appeared behind her, his hand touching her shoulder gently. "You haven't said much since last night." His voice was soft, but the worry underneath it was hard to hide. Ava turned slightly. "I've said enough." She gave a small, almost tired smile. "People already said the rest." The city hummed below, horns, faint sirens, the heartbeat of wealth and chaos. Ava looked out again, her thoughts drifting backward, years before the penthouse, before the luxury, before him. 5 years earlier. The smell of coffee and dish soap filled the air of a small diner on 145th Street. Ava worked double shifts there, wearing a faded apron, her curls tied back with a rubber band. She was 24 then, smart, ambitious, invisible to most. Every clang of the kitchen bell meant another table, another polite smile, another comment about her good English. "Thanks," she'd say. "I was born in New York." The customers would laugh awkwardly, avoiding her eyes. At night, she'd take the subway back to her tiny studio apartment, where dreams of starting her own interior design business sat scribbled in notebooks, sketches, color palettes, plans. But dreams didn't pay rent. Racism didn't rest, and talent didn't always find its audience. One evening, a storm hit. The diner had emptied out except for one man at the corner table, a tall, well-dressed stranger scrolling through his phone, a laptop open beside him. Elias. He watched her quietly for a moment as she cleaned, humming under her breath. "You always hum when you're working?" he asked suddenly. Ava looked up, surprised. "It keeps the noise out," He smiled faintly. Noise? She shrugged. People. Thoughts. The kind of noise that tells you you're not supposed to dream too loud. His gaze softened. There was something about her composure, quiet, intelligent, but edged with exhaustion. He closed his laptop. Mind if I sit here again tomorrow? Ava blinked. You want to eat here twice in a row? He chuckled. Maybe I just like the soundtrack. They spoke again the next day, and the one after. She learned he was a venture investor, working with small business owners, people with ideas like hers. He listened. Really listened. Not with pity, not with condescension, but with curiosity and respect. I think you've got vision, he told her one night, as rain tapped softly against the glass. She laughed. Vision doesn't pay bills. He replied, No, but faith does. They built something slowly, quietly. First friendship, then partnership, and finally, love. Elias invested in her design business, Avora Interiors, and within 2 years she turned it into one of the fastest-growing boutique firms in the city. Her designs appeared in luxury hotels, restaurants, even magazines. But no matter how much she achieved, she noticed something else too. The stares. The pauses when she introduced herself as Mrs. Elias Carter. The way people's eyes flicked between her skin and his suit, subtle, polished, but sharp. At galas, she was often mistaken for an assistant, a server, a guest friend, never the woman who owned the brand or signed the checks. Elias saw it too, and it ate at him, quietly, relentlessly. That night, after the humiliation at the restaurant, Ava whispered, It's not the first time, Elias, it just finally went public. He reached for her hand, his thumb tracing soft circles against her skin. What she did was unforgivable. Ava's eyes darkened, reflecting the city's distant lights. What she did, she said, voice quiet but firm, is what they all do. Just louder. Her chest rose and fell, controlled but trembling. I've had people pull me aside at meetings to ask which department I really work in. I've had clients tell me I'm articulate. I've had men call me exotic like I'm decoration. She swallowed hard. You know the difference between Vanessa and the others? He shook his head. She didn't whisper it. She turned away from the window and paced slowly, bare feet against the marble floor. The sound of her steps echoed, soft but deliberate. I've spent years building something that could speak louder than my skin, she said. But all it takes is one moment like that to remind the world and me that they still see me as less. Elias watched her, silent, absorbing every word. Then quietly, So what do you want to do? Ava stopped walking. Her reflection in the glass looked like someone else entirely. The girl from the diner, dressed now in silk instead of cotton, but with the same fire beneath the surface. I want to design something new, she said. Something that can't be ignored. I want the next restaurant opening to have my name in gold on the wall, designed by Ava Carter. So the next Vanessa Sterling has to walk under it when she comes in. Her words hung in the air like a vow. Elias smiled faintly. You've always known how to turn pain into purpose. She met his eyes. That's the only way people like me survive. Rain intensified outside, tapping against the glass in rhythmic waves. Ava walked to her desk and opened a sketchbook, fresh pages, clean, waiting. She began to draw, lines, curves, patterns, her thoughts translating into structure, her humiliation reshaping itself into something beautiful. Each pencil stroke was deliberate. The sound of graphite scratching against paper mixed with the patter of rain, therapeutic, determined, cinematic. Elias watched, silent, awestruck, for the first time since the gala. Ava's shoulders relaxed. The storm inside her was finding direction. Hours passed. The city grew quiet. The first light of dawn crept across the skyline, painting her sketches in soft amber. Ava exhaled, closing the book, exhaustion and clarity colliding. Elias came beside her, wrapping his arm around her gently. What's it called? He whispered. She smiled faintly. The redemption room, he raised a brow. Fitting. She looked out the window, eyes gleaming with quiet defiance. One day, she said softly, they'll walk into that restaurant and realize I built the place where their prejudice ends. Her words lingered in the air like prophecy. But deep down, she knew the world doesn't change easily. Whispers become rumors. Rumors become storms, and the storm brewing around her name was only getting started. Because the video from that night had already gone viral. They tore my dress. Now they'll see what I can build with the pieces. Morning light poured into the studio, a golden flood across scattered sketches and fabric swatches. The smell of coffee mingled with cedar and glue, the scent of creation, of war disguised as work. Ava stood before a giant board pinned with designs, bold, angular, unapologetic. Every pencil mark cut through memory, Vanessa's smirk, the sound of silk ripping, the crowd's awkward silence. The internet had already decided what happened. The video, racist socialite tears dress at black waitress, had hit 3 million views overnight, only it wasn't just that. Someone had clipped Elias's shocked face, Ava's trembling hands, the torn dress. Headlines called her the mystery woman in red. She wasn't ready for what came next. The studio phone rang. She hesitated before answering. Avora Interiors, this is Ava. A deep voice on the other end. Mrs. Carter, this is Daniel from the Herald. We'd love to get your comment on last night's... She hung up. Another call came in. Then another. Then another. By noon, her inbox overflowed with hate and praise alike, messages calling her a queen, a liar, a gold digger, an inspiration. The world didn't want the truth. It wanted a story. Inside the noise, Ava went silent. Her heartbeat slowed. The pencil in her hand trembled. Then, she took a deep breath and chose stillness. That's what her grandmother used to say. When the world screams, "Child, speak with your hands." So Ava drew. Hours turned to days. Each design took shape like a scar healing. Something raw turned refined. She called the line resilience. A week later, Elias came home to find her surrounded by half-finished models, wooden structures, curved glass panels, mock-ups of what looked like a restaurant. He blinked. What's all this? Ava looked up, eyes burning bright. The redemption room, remember? He crossed his arms, a mix of worry and admiration. You're serious, she nodded. If they'll call me a waitress, then I'll design the room they'll eat in. Elias's lips curved. You want to turn humiliation into architecture? Ava smiled faintly. Into legacy, word spread. Quietly at first. Investors hesitated. Public image risk, they said. Brands backed off. We're waiting for the media storm to settle. Ava heard it all, but didn't flinch. Instead, she found new allies, people she'd met on the way up, a construction manager who'd once been turned down for his accent, a chef who'd been told his food was too ethnic, and a publicist who'd quit after being called aggressive for asking fair questions. They gathered around her in that studio one night, 5 of them. Standing under warm light, faces tired but determined, Ava spread her sketches across the table. This place won't just be beautiful. It'll be proof. The chef, Dario, leaned forward. Proof of what? She met his eyes. That dignity is louder than hate. The camera inside the studio caught glimpses. Someone live-streamed snippets of their process, posting under the tag, Redemption Room. What started as a trickle became a wave. Comments flooded in, she's turning pain into art. Design that speaks justice. Build it. Ava! The same world that once humiliated her now leaned in, breathless. But outside that bubble, the storm brewed. Vanessa Sterling, the socialite who tore Ava's dress, went on morning talk shows, painting herself as the victim. I was defending myself, she said, voice trembling with fake regret. She was aggressive. I didn't even know she was married to Mr. Carter. Her words spread poison wrapped in politeness. Ava watched one interview from her phone, jaw tight. Defending herself? She muttered. Elias beside her clenched his fists. We could sue. Ava shook her head slowly. No, let her speak, he frowned. You're just going to let her... She's giving me every sound I need for my next move, Ava said, eyes narrowing. Wait for it. Weeks passed. The redemption room began taking shape in an old riverside building. Its glass panels curved like flowing fabric, its lighting warm, reflective, golden, soft, forgiving. Ava walked through the half-finished hall one evening, fingertips brushing smooth marble, the scent of fresh paint mixing with city air. She could almost hear the future, clinking glasses, polite laughter, the hum of conversation under chandeliers. But more than that, she could feel it. Freedom. Then one night, as the team worked late, Dario burst into the studio breathless. "Ava, you need to see this!" He spun his phone around. Vanessa Sterling, again, but this time, not on TV, a leaked audio recording. Her voice sneering, laughing with friends. She should be grateful I tore it. It probably wasn't even real silk. Elias Carter? He's too good for her. He's just saving face. The internet exploded. Elias's phone buzzed nonstop. Journalists, sponsors, activists. The air in the studio grew electric. Ava just stood there, the sound of Vanessa's voice echoing in her mind. Harsh, shrill, familiar. Then she smiled, softly, coldly. She just handed me my opening night speech. A week later, construction finished. The grand opening of the Redemption Room was announced, an invitation-only event. Every camera in the city pointed toward it. People whispered, "Will Vanessa come? Will Elias speak? What will Ava do?" The night before the opening, Ava stood alone in the finished hall. Golden light cascaded over glass and velvet. The scent of jasmine candles filled the air. Her reflection shimmered faintly on the polished floor. Powerful, calm, resolute. Elias entered quietly behind her. "It's beautiful," he said softly. Ava turned. "It's more than that. It's truth," he smiled. "You're ready?" She nodded once. "I'm not here to humiliate her. I'm here to remind her and everyone who I am." That night she couldn't sleep. She replayed every insult, every whisper, every look. Then she remembered her grandmother's voice again. "The higher they build their walls, the better your echo will sound when you rise." Her heart slowed. Her breath steadied. She was ready. Morning arrived. The Redemption Room gleamed under the sunrise. Guests began to arrive in gowns and tuxedos, cameras flashing. The world was watching. Vanessa Sterling stepped out of a limo, hiding behind oversized sunglasses. Ava saw her through the glass doors, the same woman who'd torn her dress, now stepping into a place she built. The irony was perfect. Cinematic. A slow-motion moment that felt like destiny. Ava adjusted her pearl earrings, lifted her chin, and whispered to herself, "Time to build what they tried to destroy. The woman who was torn down is about to rebuild the story. Live in front of the world." The Redemption Room glowed like a jewel in the city's heart. Golden chandeliers shimmered overhead, each light reflecting off curved glass walls that captured every whisper, every breath. The sound of camera shutters, murmurs, and clinking champagne glasses filled the air, the hum of power gathering to witness something they didn't yet understand. Ava stood behind the velvet curtain, fingers grazing the silk of her gown, pure white, structured, elegant, the opposite of the torn red dress that had started it all. She could feel her heartbeat in her throat. Thud, thud, thud. Outside, the hostess's voice echoed through hidden speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the visionary designer and owner of the Redemption Room, Mrs. Ava Carter." A wave of applause rose, camera flashes igniting like lightning. Ava took one breath, slow, steady, then stepped out. The hall silenced. Every movement felt like slow motion. The white gown rippled softly as she walked across the marble floor, her heels clicking like the ticking of time. Her eyes locked on the far end of the room, where Vanessa Sterling stood, surrounded by socialites, her perfect smile frozen in surprise. Vanessa's champagne glass trembled. For a flicker of a second, she looked. Small Ava's voice carried through the room, calm, resonant, cinematic. "Good evening. Thank you all for coming." To the place that was born from humiliation, a murmur. Reporters leaned forward. Elias, standing in the corner, gave a small nod. Ava continued, eyes scanning the crowd. "Some of you know the story. A woman, me, was mistaken for a waitress at a charity gala. She was insulted, and her dress was torn in front of a room just like this one." She paused. The silence was alive. Only a distant camera click, like a heartbeat. They called her names. They laughed. "And she left quietly." Ava smiled slightly. "But silence is not weakness. It's preparation." Vanessa shifted uncomfortably, her friends whispering. Someone filmed on their phone, a close-up of Vanessa's pale face. Ava turned her gaze directly toward her. "And the woman who tore that dress is here tonight." Gasps scattered through the crowd. All heads turned. Cameras swiveled, Vanessa froze, her lips parted, a faint stammer escaping. I didn't... Ava raised a hand. No need to explain. I invited you. Her tone was even, controlled, like glass before it cracks. The audience shifted, shock, curiosity, fascination. Even the chandeliers seemed to dim slightly, focusing the light on the two women. Ava walked closer, each step deliberate. You see, I wanted her to see what she helped build. This place. These walls. She gestured around, the golden curves, the flowing light. Every inch of this room was inspired by that night. The tears, the shame, the laughter. I turned them into structure, into light, into space. A pause. So when people ask me what the redemption room means, I say, it's the sound of dignity echoing louder than hate. Applause rippled, hesitant at first, then strong. Camera flashes lit the air like fireworks. Vanessa blinked rapidly, trying to smile, trying to survive the moment. I didn't know who you were, she stammered, voice breaking. I thought, Ava cut in softly. Exactly. You thought. Her words sliced through the noise, clean, surgical. You saw my skin, not my story. My quiet, not my worth. A murmur ran through the audience, low, heavy, awakening. Ava turned, facing the crowd now. That's the problem with assumptions. They build walls where there should be windows. She looked back at Vanessa. And tonight, I want you to see through one. She lifted a small remote and pressed a button. The room dimmed. Projectors on the glass walls came alive, revealing a video montage, photos of the torn red dress, headlines calling her the unknown waitress, then architectural renderings, sketches, and finally in the finished redemption room, the crowd gasped. Over the speakers, Ava's voice echoed, a recording of her real words from the studio. They tore my dress. But they didn't tear my purpose. The images slowed. Vanessa's face appeared briefly in a blurred frame from the leaked video, her laughter frozen mid-smirk. Vanessa gasped audibly. You can't... Ava faced her calmly. I already did. The crowd murmured louder now. Journalists typing, phones recording, influencers whispering. Vanessa's hands shook. You'll ruin me. Ava tilted her head, eyes soft but unyielding. No. You did that when you mistook cruelty for class. Elias stepped forward from the shadows, joining Ava. His voice was firm, proud. My wife doesn't need to ruin anyone. She builds, the crowd cheered. Vanessa's friends slipped away silently, one by one. Cameras zoomed in. Tears glistened in Ava's eyes as she turned back to the audience. We've all been underestimated, she said. Dismissed. Judged. But let this place remind you that the ones you overlook may be the ones building the future you'll live in. Her voice cracked. Just slightly, and that made it real. To everyone who's ever been called less than, this room is yours. The hall erupted in applause. People stood, clapped, whistled. Phones captured the moment that would go viral before dawn. Vanessa turned to leave, shoulders trembling, face pale. But as she passed Ava, she whispered, broken. I'm... Sorry, Ava didn't gloat. She simply nodded, eyes steady. Then learn, and do better. As Vanessa exited, reporters followed, shouting questions. The spotlight shifted back to Ava. Elias slipped his arm around her waist, whispering, You did it. She looked up at him, tears now falling freely. No, she said softly, smiling. We did. The music swelled, violins, piano, slow and rising. The sound of redemption turning into melody. Camera flashes flickered like starlight as she looked around the hall. The walls reflecting her white gown, her calm face, her triumph. The woman who was once called a waitress now owned the table. The woman whose dress was torn now stood draped in power. The scene froze in cinematic slow motion, applause echoing. Lights flaring, her hand clutching Elias's as they stood beneath the chandelier. A narrator's voice could almost be heard above it all. They tore her dress. But she rewove the world. The world had just witnessed her redemption. But what happens after the applause, when justice settles and scars remain? The night after the grand opening felt like standing at the edge of a quiet storm. Rain tapped against the tall glass windows of the redemption room, soft and rhythmic, like a heartbeat calming after battle. The chandeliers were dim now. The guests were gone. Only the faint scent of jasmine candles lingered. And Ava stood alone in the empty hall she'd built from the ashes of humiliation. Her reflection shimmered faintly across the glass floor, her white gown pooling around her feet like calm after chaos. She did it. But the silence was louder than the applause had been. A door creaked open behind her. Elias stepped in, jacket over his arm, tie loosened. His eyes searched her face. Couldn't sleep either? Ava smiled faintly. Didn't want to, I just needed to hear the quiet again. He joined her, standing beside her as thunder rumbled in the distance. Do you regret it? He asked softly. Ava's eyes drifted to the chandelier, to the same light that had illuminated Vanessa's apology hours earlier. Regret? She exhaled. No, I mourn it maybe. The fact that it even had to happen. Her voice was low, heavy. People think justice feels like victory, but it feels more like breathing again. Elias reached for her hand, fingers lacing through hers. You gave them something to remember. She looked up at him, a tear glinting. No, we gave them something to believe in. 2 days later, the world reacted. Every social feed pulsed with clips from the confrontation. Ava's poised speech, Vanessa's stunned silence, Elias's proud defense. The redemption room trended globally for 3 straight days. Headlines read, Designer turns racism into art. A torn dress, a $10 million statement. When grace speaks louder than hate, thousands of messages poured in. Waitresses, artists, janitors, CEOs. People who'd been silenced, dismissed, or disrespected. One message stuck with her. You made me proud of my skin again. Ava cried quietly reading that. It wasn't fame she'd earned. It was reflection. Meanwhile, Vanessa Sterling's empire began to crumble quietly, almost poetically. Her sponsors pulled out. Her charity board removed her. Her PR firm dropped her after leaked texts showed she'd tried to pay to suppress the footage. A week later, tabloids caught her walking alone down Fifth Avenue, head bowed, paparazzi shouting questions she couldn't answer. Vanessa, do you have anything to say to Ava Carter? She said nothing. Just silence. The same silence she'd once weaponized against someone else. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks quietly beside you, letting truth echo behind. Back at the redemption room, Ava opened a new wing, the reflection hall. Inside, each wall displayed portraits and stories of ordinary people who'd faced discrimination. A janitor turned entrepreneur, a refugee chef who opened a Michelin star restaurant, a teacher fired for her accent who started a global literacy fund. Above the entrance, engraved in gold, were the words, "You cannot shame what has learned to shine." When the press asked her why she built it, Ava simply said, because revenge fades, but light doesn't. That evening, Ava walked through the reflection hall as visitors explored, families, students, reporters. She overheard whispers. She's the one from that video. No, she's the architect who changed the conversation. She made that woman apologize on national TV. Ava smiled, not out of pride, but peace. She no longer flinched at the memory of torn fabric. She had stitched something far greater, a space where dignity lived in design, and silence meant serenity, not shame. Later that night, Elias joined her again, carrying 2 glasses of champagne. He handed her one, raising his in a quiet toast. To your grandmother, he said. Ava laughed softly. To her voice, always in my head, he grinned. What was it she used to say? Ava looked toward the glowing hall and whispered, the higher they build their walls, the louder your echo will sound when you rise. They clinked glasses, the sound bright and fragile, like the last note of a symphony. Weeks turned into months. Ava's designs appeared on magazine covers. Universities invited her to speak. The redemption room became a landmark, not for its architecture, but for its message. Students came in groups, touching the glass walls that caught the light just right, whispering, this is where it happened. But to Ava, it wasn't about what happened. It was about what grew afterward. One afternoon, she received a letter, handwritten, delivered by courier. No return address, Inside a single line written in neat cursive, "You were right. I thought I saw everything. I didn't. VS." Ava stared at it for a long time. Then, without anger, she folded it carefully and tucked it into her journal. Some wounds close not with closure, but with understanding. The story of the redemption room became legend, taught in design schools, featured in documentaries, analyzed in psychology journals. But to those who'd been there that night, it wasn't just architecture. It was proof that grace can be sharper than vengeance, that empathy can be louder than hate, and that sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming undeniable. As night fell months later, Ava stood once again beneath the chandeliers. The hall was quiet, bathed in soft gold. Through the glass, the city lights shimmered like applause from the stars. She closed her eyes, breathing in that silence again. No fear, no doubt. No shame, just power, calm, radiant, earned. Her voice was barely a whisper. "They tore my dress." A pause, but they stitched my destiny. Some people build walls, others build rooms that teach the world to listen. If this story moved you, share it, because every act of courage deserves to be seen.